The winning blueprint presents.
In the lab room.
Welcome, you are in the lab room. I'm your host, Lou. Thank you for joining me. It's Friday, which means there was some Thursday night football action to wrap up the last Thursday night game of the season, and this was an epic disaster, a loss of epic proportions by the Philadelphia Eagles. Wasn't terrible in the sense of they quit from start to finish on Andy Reid. Just shows you just how bad this Philadelphia Eagles team really is. After getting a win on the road that no one saw them getting against Tampa Bay a week ago, you thought they were going to build off of that, maybe finish the season up a little bit stronger than one may have thought. No, that second half was a second half of ineptness for the ages. I would love to just sit here and talk about how bad that second half was. I mean, actually, how bad of a football team you have to be to have happen what happened to the Philadelphia Eagles in this game. But I don't have the time. It's Friday. There's a lot to get to. So I just give you a few tidbits, move on. We might come back and revisit this game maybe on Tuesday or something when we have time. Maybe not. I don't know. This game was just so bad. And not in terms of watchability, but just how ineffective and how unlucky you have to be to have some of the things that occurred on Thursday Night Football the way they did for the Philadelphia Eagles. Just know this game was 10-13 Philadelphia at half. And they wind up losing this game 34-13. All 34 points scored by the Cincinnati Bengals came on sudden change of possession, not via the Bengals just driving the football. They didn't once in this game force a punt, have the Eagles punt them the football, catch it, fair catch it, return it 5 yards, and then have to start a drive from their own 23-yard line. Not one time did the Cincinnati Bengals have to drive the length of the field to get points on the board. Every possession that resulted in points, every possession that resulted in points for the Cincinnati Bengals was aided in some way, shape, or form by the Philadelphia Eagles. Amazing. I'm going to leave it at that. Bengals get the win, a much-needed win. They had to have it to go to 8-6 on the season, 34-13. Philadelphia Eagles drop to 4-10 on the season. I'm just going to leave it at that. We're going to move on because, again, I could sit here and talk for about 30 minutes about how unusual a game this was and how bad of a football team you have to be to have a game like this one. So I'm just going to move on so I don't get caught up. Got a lot to get to today. Bengals get the victory, go to 8-6. Now they're in the playoffs as a 6th seed in the AFC. Of course, pending a Steelers loss, they would remain there. If the Steelers are to win on Sunday, then the Cincinnati Bengals would be back on the outside looking in of the playoff picture. So, big win for the Bengals. Gives them an opportunity to remain in the postseason. Gives them an opportunity to leapfrog the Pittsburgh Steelers for about 3 days. And then they'll have to be in front of the TV screen on Sunday to see what the Steelers do on the road against the Dallas Cowboys. So let's get to the Sunday slate of games. Talk about each game. Give you my thoughts on what will go down in these games and give you a winner. See what the lab room can do this week. I struggled last week. And last week is a friendly reminder. It wasn't friendly to me, but it was a friendly reminder that this is a week-to-week league. It's a fluid league. You just don't know. You think you know, but you have no idea. It's the National Football League. You got to love it. You got to love it. You don't know. You think you know, but you don't know. You think you know, but you don't have any idea. You think you know who's a good team. You think a team's going to get it done at home. You think this team can't get it done on the road. You're wrong. And last week reminded me of that. I had a lot of inclinations, a lot of different things running through my head that I thought maybe I should pick. I thought maybe I should pick the Carolina Panthers. I said that on the show last week. Did I pick them? No. They went out and they got it done. Those are things you think, but you don't actually pull the trigger on. And if you're not going to pull the trigger on it, who cares what you think? If you don't have the balls to make the pick, I don't care about it. And so I found myself in a sticky situation last week. A lot of teams that I thought, in games I thought that could go either way, teams I thought could win, and they didn't. Or they did, but I didn't pick them. And so I had to pay the price. I went 8-8 last week. That's a terrible record for this stage of the season. I should be better than that. I expect to be better than that. I will be better than that this week. Got off to a good start with the Cincinnati Bengals, getting it done on Thursday Night Football. Got off on the left foot, which is what I always want to do. Give myself a chance with a clean slate coming into Sunday slate of games. So feel good about that, but doesn't change the fact that last week was an 8-8, 500 showing. I'm not happy about that. I'm not thrilled about that at all. I'm going to bounce back this week, but again, you just have no idea. And that's what you have to love about the NFL. There's never a week you can go in and say, hey, I got it this week. For sure. Because you just never know who's going to show up, who's not going to show up, who's going to surprise you, who's going to go on the road and buck a trend, who's going to be at home and lay an egg. You just never know. So, last week, I struggled. This week, I looked to bounce back, and I got off on the left foot in this game with Cincinnati, getting it done. Let's get into the Sunday slate of games and talk about these football games coming up in Week 15. This is a huge week with a lot of games with playoff implications. So let's talk about Week 15 in the National Football League. Up first on Sunday is probably one of the most premier matchups of the weekend. This is a big one with huge playoff implications in the NFC. Talking about the New York Giants traveling to Atlanta to take on the Falcons. This is a huge matchup in the NFC conference for many different reasons. One, the Giants are clinging to a one-game lead in the NFC East over the Dallas Cowboys and the Washington Redskins. You look at the Atlanta Falcons, there's no panic, or at least there shouldn't be in Atlanta. You look on the outside of that locker room and the sky is falling. Everyone's questioning whether the Atlanta Falcons are the team that record indicates, them being 11-2 right now, or are they a fraud? And that's what they've been battling against all season long. The speculation of everyone watching this team from afar that they're just not as good as their record indicates. You win 11 games in the National Football League, I don't care what anybody else says, you're a good football team. You win 11 games within your first 13, and you're a really good football team, no matter what anybody else says. And if the Falcons are thinking any other way than that, then they're not a good football team, because they're letting external pressures and forces split this team apart and create doubt in their mind, and they should not be allowing that to happen. They lost last week to a team in their division. It was family business. It happens. They need to move on, right the ship, and start playing some of their better football down the stretch. That's what good teams do. They start playing good football this time of year. And they haven't played good football all year long to just allow it to fall apart at the end of this season and not get the first playoff seed in the NFC. So they need to turn around, find a way to get it done at home against this Giants team who normally gets hot around this time of the season. They won last week in convincing fashion against the New Orleans Saints. They don't have an opportunity to have a letdown again, and this time at home against a good Giants team. They need to turn it up, do the Atlanta Falcons. And so this should be a really good football game. This is going to tell us a lot about the NFC picture as far as the playoff picture is concerned. Both of these teams need this win. The Giants more so than the Falcons, but nonetheless, the Falcons need this game from a psyche standpoint. Even though you're 11-2 and probably going to be the number one seed in the NFC, you still don't want to have that doubt be cast upon you, especially in your own locker room. It's one thing for the media and all the other teams around the league to doubt who you are. You don't need to be doubting yourself if you're the Atlanta Falcons. That's the worst thing that can happen this time of season. And you haven't lost at home this season. That's huge. If you're an Atlanta Falcons football team, the one thing you can hang your hat on and say this season is that we haven't lost at home. No one's come into the Georgia Dome and beat us. So if you're the Falcons, you want to keep it that way. That's a mental edge you'll have over every other team in the NFC playoffs, is that you can say, look, I haven't lost at home all season. The only other team that can lay claim to that in the NFC is the Seattle Seahawks. And if you're the Falcons, you don't have to worry about going anywhere. You don't have to worry about leaving your facility at all in the postseason if you get it done down the stretch. You've earned the right to play at home for the duration of the playoffs, the whole postseason, if you can get it done down the stretch, wrap up home field throughout in the NFC. You will be able to say, hey, I don't have to leave the Georgia Dome till I go to the Super Bowl if I get there, and you can just win ball games at home. And that's what you need to do down the stretch so that you can assure yourself of not having to travel anywhere else to play games in the playoffs where you haven't lost all season long. So if you're the Atlanta Falcons, this is a big game. It's going to come down to the efficiency of this Atlanta Falcons offense. For the most part, and no one's talking about their defense, but their defense has really been a stabilizing force on this football team. You know, you've had, I should say, some skittish performances from this Atlanta Falcons offense. You don't know if you're going to get anything out of Michael Turner from week to week. Jacquizz Rodgers has been a revelation for them. However, he's a guy that I don't think you want to overwork in terms of touches. I think the way they use him right now is probably perfect for what they're trying to do. You don't want to start giving this guy 21 carries and, throwing it to him another 5 times out of the backfield for a total of 26 touches in the game. I think that's overworking this guy. I think it's perfect the way it is. Let Michael Turner eat up about 12 to 15 carries, have Jacquizz Rodgers get another 8 to 10, and have him touching another 4 or 5 times out of the backfield. And I think that's fine, for a total of about 14 to 15, maybe 16 touches for Jacquizz Rodgers. But again, you don't know what you're getting out of the running game from week to week from the Falcons. They're not a good running team. Matt Ryan, he's had his good days. He's had his awful days. There's games where he throws 3, 4 interceptions. There's games where he's flawless. And this offense is a well-oiled machine. You just don't know what you're getting from this Falcons offense from week to week sometimes. But meanwhile, this defense has really been solid. Surprisingly enough, no one's talking about this defense and the ability of this Atlanta Falcons team to get pressure on the opposing QBs, especially at home, and them forcing turnovers. They've been a good team at forcing turnovers, especially at home. They've been really good at forcing turnovers at home. We saw them earlier in the season against Peyton Manning, force turnovers. We saw them against Drew Brees on Thursday Night Football just a few weeks back, force 5 interceptions. They've forced turnovers, have this defense, and they've been really good at that, especially at home. They'll need to do that again on Sunday against the Giants and Eli Manning if they want to win this football game, because if Eli Manning gets hot, starts finding Victor Cruz, starts finding Hakeem Nicks, goes to Martellus Bennett, that could spell trouble for this Atlanta Falcons team. Now, they'll be starting rookie David Wilson on Sunday with the New York Giants at running back. Ahmad Bradshaw been battling that foot injury that he always has every season. Don't know about his availability for this game. He may not play. Right now, the word out of New York is that David Wilson's probably going to start this game, so he's going to have to carry the load. We saw a lot of what he can do on Sunday, and it's going to be a big test for him as well to see if he can shoulder the burden of being the starting running back on this Giants team, because he's probably the future for this team. And so this is going to be our first glimpse of David Wilson as the feature tailback in New York. How will he handle it? Will he put the ball on the ground? He's been very good of late, especially in the return game. He probably won't have many returns. They'll probably look for someone else to do that because he'll be the starting tailback in this game. Hasn't really had a chance to carry the rock since week 1 when he fumbled against Dallas. This is an opportunity to see what he can do. Let's see what he does with it. Big opportunity for the Giants here. If they can beat the Falcons on the road and get a win in the Georgia Dome, something no one else has been able to do this season, that'll be huge in terms of playoff implications, 1, for this Giants team, and 2, and this would be another win that would have you thinking that here we go again with those Giants getting hot at the end of the season. It's one thing for the Giants to start thinking that way, but if other opponents, like say the Ravens who they play next week, start thinking that way as well, the Giants could have a mental edge over some of the teams that they're playing down the stretch, because we all know of the struggles of the Giants in the middle of the season. They go into this lull for some reason, and then at the end they get hot and they make a Super Bowl run. Will this be the case this season, or will they actually wait too late to turn it on and suffer a fate that might see them not even make the postseason? We'll see, but this is a huge game. If the Giants can execute on offense, they've got a good shot, as good as any, to go into the Georgia Dome and come away with the win. Defensively, they've had their struggles this season. They've had pressures on the quarterback at times. They haven't. They've forced a lot of turnovers. And Stevie Brown has been a turnover forcing machine himself back there in the secondary, but they've been exploited at times. Will this Giants defense show up against a hot Atlanta Falcons offense, or will this Giants defense show up against a Atlanta Falcons offense that has the ability to be hot and score 30-something points? Or will they be the Giants defense that gets pressure on the quarterback, forces turnovers, and really puts the clamps down on this Atlanta Falcons offense and holds them to 17, 20 points? We'll see. This is going to be a great matchup. Again, I respect the Falcons and what they've been able to do this season, especially at home. I can't go against them right now. I feel like the Giants, even though they were impressive in their win a week ago against the New Orleans Saints, there were points left out there on the field by the New Orleans Saints. A lot of mistakes by the Saints. If the Falcons can avoid those mistakes and turnovers that the New Orleans Saints had, they can score some points. There are some points out there to be scored on this Giants defense, and I think they'll be able to get it done. Will the Atlanta Falcons 24-23? This is going to be a really good football game, but I just don't see the Giants being able to go into Atlanta, into the Georgia Dome, and come away with a victory against an 11-2 football team that hasn't lost at home all season long. Falcons get the victory, go to 12-2 on the season. Meanwhile, the New York Giants drop this one and go to 8-7 on the season, and then they'll have to start scoreboard watching and hope that the Cowboys and the Redskins both fall in their games to hold on to the NFC East lead after this ball game on Sunday. Surprisingly enough, the next matchup on the slate is also a game that has playoff implications. The Minnesota Vikings traveling to the 6-1 St. Louis Rams. Both of these teams actually still have an outside shot of making the postseason in the NFC. Vikings at 7-6, and the aforementioned Rams hanging on to playoff hopes. So this is a huge game. Vikings really saved their season a week ago at home against the Chicago Bears. They're riding a wave of emotion right now. They feel good about themselves after getting a big win inside the division. The Rams are feeling the same way after looking like a team that was probably going to just have another one of those ho-hum seasons. Even though an improvement on their record and the direction that Jeff Fisher has this team going in, you still would have been encouraged by just finishing. You still would have been encouraged by finishing 7-8-1 on the season or so. Now they actually have a shot. It's a long shot, but they actually have a shot of making the postseason still. And they've won 2 straight, and so they've put themselves in a position to have a chance to go to the postseason. This is a big one, but the Rams haven't been that good of a team at home this season. And the Vikings haven't been that good of a road team this season. So something has to give in this football game. We know what these teams are. They're both teams that are flawed tremendously offensively. Both of these teams find it hard to score points, mainly because the Vikings don't have great quarterback play. And the St. Louis Rams are wildly inconsistent on the offensive end. Sometimes you get a good performance out of Steven Jackson. Sometimes you don't. Sometimes you get a solid performance out of Sam Bradford. Sometimes you don't. And you just don't know what you're getting out of the offense of these two teams. You know what you're getting out of the Minnesota Vikings. You're going to get a heavy dose of Adrian Peterson. That's for sure. That's one thing that you can count on. And he's been carrying the load for this team all season long. Without his services, this is a 3-win team, are the Minnesota Vikings. But because of Adrian Peterson, his legs, and his amazing comeback off of that ACL surgery, they've been able to win football games. Will they be able to just run the football in this game? Because, again, Christian Ponder is a quarterback that you really can't rely on to get it done on a week-in, week-out basis. Last week, he threw for less than 100 yards on 11 completions. He just hasn't been a good quarterback this season. And I find it hard to believe that you can do this week after week and find a way to win. But somehow Adrian Peterson and his just amazing season continues, and they find a way to win because of Adrian Peterson. Can they do that against a Rams team that has to know that the Vikings are going to run the football? It's going to be tough. Again, I keep doubting this Rams team, and they keep proving me wrong week after week. I didn't think they could beat San Francisco. I didn't think they could tie San Francisco. I didn't think they could go into Buffalo last week and win, and they won twice in a row. They went to San Francisco and got a tie. This team seems to show up in the most inopportune times when I don't think they can. And I'm again going against this St. Louis Rams team because I just don't think they're that good of a football team, good enough to win at home against a Vikings team that you know is going to run the ball down your throat. Can they just stand up and stop the run? Because if they do that, they'll have a great chance of winning this game, because without Adrian Peterson, there is no Minnesota Vikings. You stop the run, you stop Adrian Peterson, you're probably going to get yourself a win against the Minnesota Vikings. That's goal number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4, and number 5 if you're the St. Louis Rams. Stop Adrian Peterson and that Vikings rushing attack. You don't stop that, you probably won't have a good chance of winning this game. But I just don't see them stopping Adrian Peterson. He's seen 8-man fronts. He's seen 9-man fronts. He's seen 10-man fronts this season and still been able to go over 100 yards and score 2 touchdowns. I venture to say that the Rams will throw the kitchen sink at him and he'll still be able to run. That's just how good of a machine this Minnesota Vikings rushing attack has been. They've opened up holes and Adrian Peterson has done the rest. And I see him doing it again on Sunday. 20-16 as they go on the road, get their 8th win on the season, do the Minnesota Vikings. Meanwhile, the Rams will fall to 6-7-1 on the season as they aren't able to get it done at home. 20-16. Vikings go to 8-6 and find a way to remain a fixture in the NFC playoff race. You look at the next game on the slate, it's the Tampa Bay Buccaneers traveling to New Orleans to take on the Saints. This was a shootout the last time these two teams met. This game has absolutely zero playoff implications in the NFC. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers may be hanging on by a thread mathematically, but I've already eliminated them in my mind. You lost last week to the Philadelphia Eagles at home. You can't bounce back from that. You're now under 500 for the first time since about week 10 in this season. And so I can't include the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in any serious discussion to go to the postseason when you're losing games at home to a bad Philadelphia Eagles team. They're done. The Saints, last week, they put a nail in their coffin with that disgusting performance against the Giants on the road a week ago, giving up 52 points. So they're done as well. So this is a game about pride inside that NFC South division. Two teams that are family members looking to get wins against a division rival. Tampa Bay has probably been the better team all season long, but I don't think they're good enough defensively to handle this Saints offense. Last time these two teams met, the Saints offense and one timely stop by the defense on a goal line stand proved to be the difference in that game as they were able to get it done against the Buccaneers in Tampa Bay in a shootout. I see the Buccaneers putting up a little bit of resistance in this game, but not ultimately doing enough to beat this Saints team. I think this offense of the Saints is going to get on track to finish up this season, get to about 7-9 on the season or so. Right now they're 5-8 are the Saints. Expect them to win 2 out of their final 3, get to 7-9, and this will be one of those wins. I see them getting it done at home. Drew Brees bouncing back from another lackluster performance a week ago and really getting it done at home in the Superdome, as the Tampa Bay Buccaneers will find it hard to go on the road in the division and get a win. I got the Saints getting this one 27-23 in another good game in the NFC South between these two teams. Buccaneers, after starting the season out 6-4, really having a legitimate shot at making the postseason, will fall in this game and go to 6-8. And they don't need to hang their heads. If they can find a way to get to 7-9, 8-8 on the season, they should feel good about this season. Greg Schiano has come in, changed the culture of this Tampa Bay Buccaneers team, and the future looks bright in Tampa Bay right now. Can't say it will, say a year from now, but right now it looks bright. But I just don't see them going into New Orleans and getting a win. Saints get it done 27-23, take their record to 6-8. Meanwhile, the Buccaneers drop to 6-8 on the season. Here's another game on the slate with no playoff implications, this time of the AFC variety, talking about the Jacksonville Jaguars traveling to Miami to take on the Dolphins. This is a game that sees a Miami Dolphins team trying to get back to winning ways. They've dropped 2 straight. And this, again, another team that I feel like needs to be very pleased with their progress this season. Watching them on Hard Knocks, you had to think this was a 3, maybe a 4-win team. There's no talent on this Miami Dolphins team for the most part. They're a team trying to build from the ground up. And so there's a lot of pieces that, yeah, you can hang your hat on, but for the most part, there's not a lot of talent on this team. And for them to have 5 wins at this juncture of the season, still have a chance to get to 8-8, you have to feel good about yourself if you're that organization. I know they don't want to hear that because as a team, you think you can win every game that you play, but this is just not a really good Miami Dolphins roster. And so for them to be 5-8 right now, I think that's really a testament to Joe Philbin and the job this coaching staff has done in Miami, especially having a rookie quarterback and having him perform the way he has this season. There's some things to be encouraged by. You look at the Jacksonville Jaguars, after turning it up for about a 2-week stretch there and really giving them hope to finish out this season strongly, they fell flat on their face of late, and they've looked like the Jacksonville Jaguars we've seen for the most part all season long. They're not a good football team. They don't strike any fear into anyone offensively. Defensively, they've been solid all season long. They've given this team a chance to win for the most part in just about every game they've played this season, with the exception of maybe 1 or 2 games where they were blown out of. But this defense has done all they can to keep this team in the game. This offense has just been bad all season long. I don't see them going on the road and winning a game against a Dolphins team that I think is looking to get back on track. They played a solid game to the Dolphins a week ago against Miami. They just came up short against a team that's much better than they are. They were on the road. Hard for this team to go on the road against a good team like the San Francisco 49ers and get a win. I thought they played good enough to win that game, just didn't make enough plays to win. And I see them going home, riding the ship against a bad Jacksonville Jaguars team who looked unexplosive on offense a week ago. They did not have Cecil Shorts III. He was out with a concussion. He'll be back in this game. He'll give this offense more firepower, more punch. But I just don't see them getting it done in Miami. I think the Dolphins will win this game 20-16 as they get a win for the first time in 2 weeks. They've really struggled of late, had this Dolphins team. They really need to get a win in the worst way to kind of rejuvenate them down the stretch. And I think they'll do just that against this bad Jacksonville Jaguars team, 20-16. Dolphins will get to 6-8 on the season. Meanwhile, the Jacksonville Jaguars will drop their 12th game of the season and go to 2-12 on this NFL season. Look at the next matchup. The Indianapolis Colts travel to Houston to take on the Texans in what has really developed as a huge game in Week 15. These two teams haven't met all season long. This is their first time meeting within the division. And these are the two best teams in that division. This is a 2-team race in the AFC South. And these are your two preeminent teams in that division. The Texans are 11-2, dropping their second game of the season just a week ago on Monday Night Football against the New England Patriots. And what was probably a disappointing effort by this Houston Texans team. They probably thought they were going to come out and put up a better showing than they did against the Patriots on Monday Night Football. They didn't. They laid an egg. They got blown out. And now they have to respond. Meanwhile, this Indianapolis Colts team, they just refuse to lose. Every week you look up, they're trailing by double figures. Andrew Luck has turned it over 2, 3, maybe 4 times. Yet they still find a way to win at the end, as was the case last week against the Tennessee Titans at home. They're trailing 20-7 in that game before furiously rallying back and winning the game 27-23. This is a team that you can never count them out. They always seem to find a way to hang in, and that's a testament to this coaching staff, but more importantly, to Andrew Luck, the number 1 overall pick in the 2012 draft. He's been amazing for this team. But this is going to be a test for him. On the road against the best team in your division, can you afford to turn it over 2 or 3 times and still be in this ballgame? This isn't the Detroit Lions. This isn't the Tennessee Titans. You can't afford to turn it over 3, 4 times in this game and not expect to be blown out in this game. If you're the Indianapolis Colts, you have to be more efficient on the offensive end. You can't afford 2 picks by Andrew Luck, another fumble by one of the members of this Indianapolis Colts team. You have to be on your best if you want to beat this Texans team on the road. And so the Colts are going to have to turn it up and do something that they haven't done in a long time, and that's play error, mistake-free football. Haven't seen the Colts do that in about a month, it seems like. They don't have a margin of error in this game to turn it over 3, 4 times and think they can still win. The Texans are an explosive offense that, if given the chance, can put up 30, 33, 37 points. If you aren't careful, if you turn it over, give them short fields, this Houston Texans team will be dangerous, running the football, play action fake, and getting in the end zone and scoring points. So it's imperative that the Indianapolis Colts don't turn the football over in this game. So what if you have to punt? As long as you're not giving this Houston Texans team a short field. They're already a good enough and potent enough offense to score on their own. They don't need any help. The Colts have to take care of the football. If they can do that, this game will be a lot closer than many think. But if they turn it over, they go in here and have offensive issues and woes turning the football over. Andrew Luck throws his customary 2 picks, and they have another turnover somewhere on special teams, or Andrew Luck fumbles the football, or one of the running backs fumble the football, or one of the receivers fumble the football, and they have 3 or 4 turnovers in this game, they're going to lose. And they're going to lose by double figures. This isn't a game that the Colts can afford to turn the football over in. I just don't see them going on the road. They haven't been a good road team all season long. Have this Indianapolis Colts team. And so I can't see them getting a win on the road against arguably the best team in the AFC. I just can't see them getting their 3rd win on the road. They haven't been a good road team all season, have the Indianapolis Colts, and I can't see them going into Houston against a mad Texans team who was blown out on Monday Night Football on national TV against the New England Patriots. I just see them going out and playing better football than they did on Monday, executing well, and getting the job done against this Indianapolis Colts team 30-20 as they take this one, take their record to 12-2, and win this AFC South Division. With 2 games to go, if they are able to beat the Indianapolis Colts, the Houston Texans will lock up the AFC South. Finally, it seems like they should have done this a long time ago, but when the Colts or the second place team in your division refuses to lose and give you an opportunity to clinch, you got to take matters into your own hands and actually go and beat that team. And being that these two haven't matched up this season, this is going to be a huge matchup in this division and in this conference. If the Texans want to remain the number 1 seed, they need to just win ball games. Don't worry about what anyone else is doing. Just win. And this will be the start of them looking to lock up not only this division, but home field throughout in the AFC playoffs. 30-20, the Texans will get it done. They'll go to 12-2 on the season. Meanwhile, the Colts will drop to 9-5 on the season. No panic here if you're the Colts. Even if you drop this game, you got Kansas City next week. Win that game, you clinch a playoff spot. And you've played too well this season to have it all go awry now. If you're the Indianapolis Colts, whether you win or lose this game, make sure that you put your best foot forward. And even if you lose, go to Kansas City next week, take care of business. You will be in the playoffs. You've earned the right to play in the postseason. Don't have it go downhill now. Our next game up on the slate sees the Chicago Bears hosting the Green Bay Packers in what is for the division in the NFC North. This is a huge matchup in the NFC landscape. I mean, these are two teams battling for supremacy in the NFC North division. And this is a winner-takes-all type of football game here. Because literally, if the Packers win, they win the division. It's winner-take-all for the Packers. Now, the Bears would have more work to do to win this division if they win this game. But if they win this game, not only would they be tied with the Packers, they would probably have the inside track to winning this division. It's going to take a lot. But they need this one if they want to have any opportunity, any shot of winning this division. Because that loss last week to Minnesota really put them behind the 8 ball. The Packers haven't lost all season long within the division. And so it will take this win and another loss by the Packers for the Chicago Bears to win this division. So it's a lot of work to be done, but it has to start somewhere if you're the Chicago Bears, and it needs to start in this game. You're at home. You had a devastating loss last week. You've got some injuries. You've got guys not stepping up. Time to put that all aside and get a win at home. You want to go to the postseason? This just isn't huge for your division standings. This is huge for your playoff standings as well. You go to 8-6. You drop this football game at home, and you go to 8-6 on the season. This team's knocking on the door of a playoff spot. They're knocking on your door. They want your playoff spot. You're the 6th seed right now in the NFC. They're not knocking on the door of the Seattle Seahawks. They're knocking on your door. You're the 6th seed in the NFC by virtue of that loss to the Seattle Seahawks at home 2 weeks ago. So you have not only went from a sure thing in terms of making the postseason just 3 weeks ago to now clinging to your playoff lives, but you got to win. You don't have a choice now. You've removed any margin of error for this football team by losing at home to the Seattle Seahawks, by going on the road and losing to the Minnesota Vikings. You've removed any margin of error that you built earlier in the season by playing such good football to start out this season. And I had said all along, and no one was listening to me when I was screaming this from the top of my lungs. I even did a segment on my show that I set aside for this Bears offense because they weren't scoring points. They weren't impressing me on offense. I was afraid for this Bears team offensively, which prompted me to actually talk about them for about 10, 15 minutes offensively. Because I knew those turnovers that the defense were generating, scoring touchdowns defensively, I knew that was going to run out. That well was going to run dry. That faucet was going to be turned off at some point. And about 3 weeks ago, that faucet that was dripping finally stopped dripping and finally came to a halt. It's dry now. There's no more turnovers being forced by this Bears defense. What was going to happen when this Bears offense had to generate points offensively on their own? When they got the ball at their own 23 and had to go 77 yards in 11 plays and score a touchdown. Were they going to be able to do that consistently? And I got a resounding no out of this team. Last 2 weeks, playing against solid defenses in Seattle and Minnesota, back-to-back consecutive weeks, they haven't been able to put up at least 20 points. You're not going to win many games in the National Football League not scoring more than 20 points, or at least 20 points. And that worries me, and that has to worry you if you're a Bears fan. Because you can't score 17 points consistently in this league and think you're going to beat teams. They scored 14 a week ago. They scored 17 2 weeks ago against Seattle. They lost both of those games. You're not going to play the Rams. You're not going to play the Colts. You're not going to play teams that you can dominate many times if you're this Bears team. You're not going to play Tennessee or Jacksonville. You're playing good teams now, and you're trying to make it to the postseason where you'll see more good teams, more teams that can score 24, 27 points, more teams that can hold you to 14, 17 points. What are you going to do? Right now, it looks like this Bears team is having trouble scoring points. And this is the wrong week for them to have another blunder offensively and only score 14 or 17 points. Because Green Bay can score 23, 26, 27 points. They're getting back some parts on defense. They're starting to get healthy, is this Green Bay Packers team. So what are you going to do to offset that if you're Chicago. There's no Urlacher for the rest of this season. Matt Forte, I don't think, is getting the ball enough. There's no one aside from Brandon Marshall making plays offensively out at the wide receiver position. Maybe Alshon Jeffrey's return will help this Bears offense. Something has to give. Jay Cutler needs to be protected better. This Bears offense needs to score more points. This Bears defense needs to step it back up and start getting stops. They did a good job, I thought, last week of weathering the storm. Because they started out that game last week giving up yards to Adrian Peterson. That defense really held its own last week. You look at the offensive numbers for the Vikings, and it tells the story. The points don't tell the story. They had 21 points. But that doesn't tell the story because Jay Cutler threw almost 2 pick sixes. He threw 1 pick six, and he threw another pick that they ended up running down to the 5-yard line, and 3 plays later, Adrian Peterson was in the end zone. So really, the Bears defense only gave up 7 points on their own in this game. So the defense is still getting it done. They're not forcing turnovers like they were earlier in the season and depositing them for points, but they're still getting it done. This offense needs to do their job, though. And this is going to be a huge test. The Packers, meanwhile, they're starting to get into an offensive rhythm. They ran the ball very effectively last week against the Detroit Lions at home, and that's something that they'll need to do moving forward. Take some pressure off of Aaron Rodgers. I think he's played at an MVP level again this season. His numbers don't mirror what they were last year, but that was a cartoonish year last season. Can't expect them to do what they did offensively this year and do it again like they did a year ago. They were just amazing on the offensive end last year. So for them to be as efficient, or Aaron Rodgers to be as efficient as he's been this season with the struggles of this offensive line, is nothing short of remarkable. And so this Packers team is starting to get it, and they're starting to get it at the right time. They're starting to get healthier. Jordy Nelson, I don't know if he's going to play in this game or not. We've seen Greg Jennings over the last 2 weeks. Cedric Benson should be coming back here shortly. You look at Charles Woodson should be returning here shortly. There's a good possibility that Clay Matthews plays in this game. So they're starting to get pieces back, are the Green Bay Packers. They're playing good football at the right time. And if they're able to go into Soldier Field and get a win, that would not only cement them as NFC North champions, but it would say that they're ready and poised and primed to make a run in the postseason. And it's not out of the realm of possibility that they could get their hands on a second seed and get a first-round bye. This Packers team is playing good at the right time, and they've got an outside shot at leapfrogging the San Francisco 49ers and getting a first-round bye in the postseason. Now, they have to do a lot because, again, those San Francisco 49ers beat them in week 1 of this season in Lambeau. So they can't finish tied, and they probably won't finish tied because the San Francisco 49ers have a tie on their record. So they're going to have to do more than the San Francisco 49ers down the stretch. They're going to have to win games and allow themselves to leapfrog this San Francisco 49ers team. But that should be of no concern to them right now. Their only focus should be the Chicago Bears and winning this division, locking up a playoff berth if you are the Green Bay Packers. Beat the Chicago Bears. Beat the Bears, get into the postseason, win the NFC North. I see them doing that. The Bears are reeling right now, especially offensively. Let's see if they can turn it up. I don't think they can. I have the Green Bay Packers winning this one 22-20. This is going to be a good game. You know these two teams know each other well. It's personal. It's intimate. It's family business. You know what to expect here. Hard-hitting football between two teams that flat out don't like each other. Brandon Marshall has already said, I don't like the Green Bay Packers. It's mutual. They don't like the Chicago Bears. This is going to be a great football game, one that I'll be tuning in and watching very closely. But I just think the Green Bay Packers right now are playing better football and are going to find a way to go into Soldier Field and come out the victors and win this division 22-20, taking their record to 10-4 in the season. Meanwhile, the Chicago Bears will drop to 8-6, be done in that division, and be fighting for their playoff lives after losing at home to the Green Bay Packers.